So, I'd say I done goofed. Don't have enough. I mean, I was a little late ordering this week's anime, and I think something arrives today. There's a chance that something else might arrive tomorrow, but it'll be an unintentionally small update. So I figured, cooking video. This time I'm gonna talk about mashed potatoes. You know, a quick. So it'll be a quick anime video and a quick thing. So, you know, usually you have a little tool like this for peeling potatoes. Never used it before. You got this part here, which is for the skin, and usually the tip of this here, which is for digging little pits out. So I'm just gonna have 2 potatoes here, and the idea is, you know, you kind of run it along here. I have a strainer here to help catch this stuff because it can clog this thing, so it's better if it's thrown away. I'm not sure how to describe the force I'm applying to it, but for the most part, you know, I'm keeping it pretty thin. You can kind of see here that this is mostly skin, but I'm also not being, like particularly, I'm trying to see a good one. You can see, I'm not trying to keep completely optimal, I guess. I'm looking for kind of a balance of trying to keep as much potato as I can and, basically, so like just there I cleared a bunch of brown stuff there just by, you know, going like that, and that's kind of a judgment call you can make. So, you know, that's using this part of it. The part here is usually for little things like this, which are eyes usually, and you can just kind of dig in there and scrape it out. You can see, you know, as part of doing this I keep the water running, and my general goal here is, you know, I'm making very basic mashed potatoes, but, you know, when I'm doing that for Thanksgiving, I want it to be a very pure white sort of thing. So that basically means I look for everything that's really dark and wash it. And that's also part of the reason why I keep the water constantly running, which is, you know, probably not the best environmentally conservation wise, but when you're doing it like every once in a while for big thing, you know, that can be pretty good. Let's see, probably be a little more efficient with some of this stuff. You know, I'm trying to keep as much of the starchy part of the potato as I can. And my goal here is, see, I'm doing this on short notice, so I'm just thinking, well, I had some extra potatoes because I always buy way too much for Thanksgiving, and might as well. Normally my Monday dinner is supplemented with store-bought mashed potatoes because, you know, that's very quick and easy and whatever, even though this is probably cheaper. You know, this looks pretty good. And we take a look at it. You can kind of see it's a little greeny, so I might take some of that green off. I mean, it's one of those things to just kind of be wary of. I'm pretty sure there are people with bad potato allergies or something like that out there, but you know, potatoes are a member of the nightshade family. The nightshade family, so they can be pretty poisonous, but usually, if the potatoes are just a little green, you can get away with eating some of it. But the idea here is, you know, these don't have to be too small. You know, I'm actually going with some pretty big chunks here, but as you can see, you know, the idea is the smaller the chunks that you make, the faster it cooks, but it's usually still approximately the same amount of time. And my goal here is 2 potatoes. And I'm doing this well in advance, but the nice thing about mashed potatoes is you can prepare a lot of this really in advance, because if you leave these potatoes just out as they are, they will get brown, they will oxidize. It's, you know, kind of like an apple, just like an apple. In fact, there's a lot of aspects of this that are a lot like an apple. But you can put them in water, and not only do they keep, but that's actually generally a pretty good idea when dealing with potatoes in general, because because soaking potatoes in water like that washes the starch out. That's really good if you're gonna fry them, like make French fries or something like that. In this case, you know, I'm not worried too much about doing that, but it's still kind of good. So you should always, you know, be wary of things while peeling your potatoes. So for example, you know, I haven't gone through and de-eyed it yet, but you can kind of see a little brown there, and that's probably fine. I'll probably just go in there with this, and yeah, it all came out. But sometimes you'll find brown rings that keep going on and on. Those are like fungal things, and I even had one of the potatoes that was soft, and they shouldn't be coming out soft. So for the most part, you know, you're kind of just looking for a potato that has a consistency of an apple. It's not going to be juicy like an apple, but you want to start as if you're dealing with an apple, basically. And yeah, this is already going to be a lot of mashed potato, and this is not good because I already have a lot of leftover mashed potatoes, but, you know, just so that y'all have a little content, it's not a bad idea to, you know, just do stuff, especially since, you know, I mean, when I went to bed the day before Thanksgiving, I just kind of knew, yeah, I don't have the energy to try and set up video recording. I barely have the energy to do the actual cooking. And I did cook a lot of food, even though this time I was on my own. There's a little bit of discoloration over here. And that should be fine. I'll probably should be a little more careful with this stuff, but as it is, you know, that's 2 potatoes. That's going to be a lot for one meal, but I can just, you know, go there, and I can leave those in there soaking until I'm closer to ready to cook them later tonight. So here we are. It's nearly 6 hours later. You can see the potatoes, you know, they're still nice and not brown. No water. I'm just going to start it. You can add salt to it. I think might change the properties in terms of how it reaches boiling, might season the potatoes a bit, but I keep my seasoning, I'd like to say simple, but usually that means salt and pepper. In this case, I guess I keep it a little more creamy. But the idea is, you don't exactly want it to boil, you want to actually simmer it, but the first step of doing that is bring it to boil, and I'm pretty sure high is perfectly fine for the beginning. So let's get forward till it gets to a more interesting stage. Alright, it actually hasn't been that long. I'm starting to see bubbles rising up, which means it's getting closer to boiling. I think this means we can remove this because we no longer need to maintain as much heat in there. You know, it's still not a bad idea to have that, but at this point we want to kind of control the temperature a little bit. And unfortunately, potatoes require you to pay a little more attention to them than you think. So, first of all, you can kind of notice this film forming on top of it. I do believe that's from all the starch cooking out from it. And in my experience, that can always be an issue. But, you know, I'm seeing the bubbles starting to form, coming up from the side from it boiling. And our goal is to make it simmer. Simmering is basically just at that borderline between boiling and not boiling, and I guess the idea is if it's a perfect simmer, you're kind of seeing this vibration on the top of the water. Because right now I'm still seeing a lot of boiling type stuff. I want to turn it down. I find that blowing on it kind of helps disperse with the bubbly stuff on the top. And in my experience, there can be a little bit of a delay between you're messing with this temperature and it boiling, so it's still, you know, coming up to quite a boil. Usually I'm making a bigger pot and I don't find a need to stir it. I don't think I need to stir this either. But you know, I'm just continuing to turn the temperature down, and I just blow on it. It seems to help maintain the fuzz on the top of it. Still a little warm, but we're getting closer to simmer level. Probably has to do with, you know, the size of the flame underneath, the size of the pot. So like a bigger pot is going to have a higher temperature just to maintain the same amount of thermal energy, whereas this is a really little pot, of course. And I'm just going to keep slowly turning it down. You know, there's a lot of time. You're probably fine with them boiling. I can't think of anything. You know, maybe you could burn something in there, I guess. But usually you don't have to do that much. I've now, for this little pot, gone to half. I've never made this small of a quantity of mashed potatoes, so hopefully I don't get anything wrong. Usually the cook time is about 40 minutes. And of course, again, you know, that varies depending on how thick the potatoes are. When they're thinner, yeah, it's still getting warmer and warmer more as I go, so I'm now going down to a little 3. But yeah, this is still closer to a boil than a simmer. Just keep doing this until I'm getting closer to a 2 and a low on here, so you know, I guess you probably only just need the higher temperatures just to kind of get it up to heat real quick. And that might also be a bad thing. In my experience, I've never had any issues with it, but your mileage might vary. And I also have to say that it really isn't as bubbly on the top as I'm used to. But what I'm used to is, you know, like having the lid on it and walking away for a couple of minutes and coming back and seeing it wanting to boil over, and it's very starchy water trying to come from the top, and you know, you'll kind of notice some starchy stains, and it'll leave not a huge mess, but you'll notice, well, it won't leave a huge mess if you clean it up quick, but it is one of those things that is a persistent annoyance. I still see little bubbles coming up, but it doesn't seem to be building. Let's go ahead and turn that temperature up just a little bit more and guess that maybe this is about the right time. And I'm going to guess it's not going to take 40 minutes. I mean, it's already been in there for like 10 minutes or so. It should be fine. The truth of the matter is I find that potatoes are a pretty hardy fruit to cook, because you can actually bake a potato in the microwave and it comes out okay. You know, it's baked potatoes usually more about how you season it, and there's better ways to cook it which cause thorough seasoning to be really tasteful, like, you know, put baking in the oven. But you know, in a pinch, if you're just going to throw like a couple of simple toppings on a baked potato, then a microwave baked potato is actually pretty good. But we're here for mashed potatoes, so that's looking good. I'm going to give that a little bit longer to go. I can see that, you know, with the top on, the fuzz is definitely building up a little bit more. We'll turn it down and let it go. Alright. And now it's, you know, it's been simmering this whole time, it's been bubbling, and I'm kind of noticing some of the potatoes already getting a little loose in there, and I'm using a fork to test. Basically, if I can stick it in them and I get no resistance like that, then that means they're cooked. You know, normally you stick a fork in an uncooked potato and it's going to feel like sticking a fork in an apple, but these are definitely cooked. Alright, next up you need to drain the water. You could put a strainer in there, and I still have the one from earlier today. I'm going to be a little more risky. You know, I tend to take the top, just make it slightly off, and you want to pour slowly because the steam's going to be hot. You want to make sure you don't burn yourself, and you want to make sure you've got a nice stable hold on everything. Like, I notice the water is kind of running along. for a little pot like this, it looks like I'm doing mostly fine. You want to make sure you just have a stable hold on both the pot and the, you know, oven mitts. Take a look at that, and yeah, that looks like the water's drained in well enough. Next up, of course, you know, you don't want to go too far after having done all that. Now, if you're going to put butter in there, now's a good time to do it, just because, you know, everything's very hot, your butter's going to get soft, and when you actually mash the potatoes, you know, the butter will mix in there. Now, I'm going to be using this. I've got to be careful, because, you know, this is metal, this has got sharp edges, and this is Teflon coated, which pretty much means I'm probably okay as long as I keep going straight up and down and I never touch the sides. But this is one form of potato masher. You know, I've seen a couple of them out there. Yeah, I gotta be careful there. I was tempted to go onto the side. And in order to probably make this work, it's probably a good idea to get like a metal spatula or something like that. You know, I'm being a little experimental with cooking this low of a quantity, so we'll kind of, you know, get some of this stuff off the edge into the middle. And I'm using the masher to not only mash the potatoes, but to mix the butter in so the butter's kind of spread out. And I went with 2 tablespoons of butter. I don't know if that'll be good or not, but you know I'm not afraid of butter. This would be a good point where if instead of butter you're using cheese or something like that, you could do that. And yeah, this is looking pretty good. About the only problem, and you know this was an expected problem, this wasn't anything new, is that, you know, you might notice, well, it's looking more like buttery baked potato, which is actually sounds really damn good. But what do you need to do to make it have that final little bit of extra, I don't know, magic? And I don't know if this is a prize or not, but you add something. So in this case, just a dab of milk. You could probably go with, you know, I don't think we want too much. It's literally that, because I don't add much milk. Okay, I'm being a little more haphazard with this thing than I really should be, but just 2 little dabs of milk for these 2 potatoes, and now look at that. Now that's looking like some real fresh mashed potatoes. I guess I could get a sample of this. Yeah, that's good. It's buttery, but, you know, I put 2 tablespoons of butter in there, so I was kind of expecting it and wanting it. So, you know, we'll stop, you know, taking risks. In fact, let's stop taking risks. Let's create space over here, and instead of balancing this precariously there where it might accidentally fall in, let's just go off to the side here where, you know, I'm just going to put it in a bowl. But that's basically it. You know, again, if you like your potatoes to be a little buttery, you can go a little crazy with the butter if you want to. The thing you really have to be careful of is, you know, after doing all that, is first of all, you know, that's a lot of calories and probably just mostly sugar in the form of starch or whatever. But the other thing you have to be careful of is, you know, potato, when it gets hard over time, tends to be a little trickier to clean. So it's not a bad idea to rinse this stuff off pretty much immediately. But I think that's the boring part. This is the part you wanted to see. Pillowy mounds of mashed potatoes. Alright.